Hello friends, today we are going to start your chapter number 3rd, Chemical Reactions and Equation of Science part 1st. Now before going to start this chapter, let us try to understand what are the topics involved in this chapter. The first topic involved in this chapter is chemical reaction. Second one is known as rules of writing chemical equation. Third one is balancing a chemical reaction, and fourth one is types of chemical reaction. Now before going to start what is mean by chemical reaction and equation, let us try to revise our concept that we learned in standard 8. In standard 8 we are learned about the three concepts, that is element, compound and mixture. These are the three concepts and their properties we learned in 8th standard. Now elements are divided into three categories: metals, second one is known as non-metals, and third one is metalloid. Elements are divided into metals, non-metals and metalloid. Compound is formed due to the definite proportion of different elements, and the properties of compounds are different from its element. Now here we are not going to learn about what is mixture. Now second concept that we are learned in standard 8, that is nothing but the concept of valency. Now you already know what is meant by valency: the number of electrons that an atom or an element gives away or take while forming an ionic bond is known as valency. Now suppose that if we consider the electronic configuration of oxygen, the electronic configuration of oxygen is 2,6. Its valency is 2. Now we know that why its valency is 2, because when we consider oxygen, its outermost orbit contains 6 electrons. To complete its octet, it requires 2 electrons, so its valency is 2. This is the concept of valency. Now let us see what are the requirements for writing molecular formulae of different compounds. When we are going to write the molecular formulae of different compounds, we must know about the symbols of the radicals and their valency. If we know the symbols of that radical and their valency, otherwise we cannot write its molecular formula. Now let us see what is meant by chemical reaction. Now before going to start what is meant by chemical reaction, we are studying about the two concepts. That concept we are learning 6th, 7th and 8th standard, that is nothing but the physical change, and second one is known as chemical change. If we know about this concept, physical change and chemical change, we can easily understand what is meant by chemical reaction and equation. Now let us see some phenomenon that occurs around us. The first one is the transformation of ice into water. Now we have to decide, is it physical change or is it chemical change, right? When ice is transformed into water, it is called a physical change, right? Second example, let us try to understand that cooking of food. Is it physical or chemical change? We say that it is chemical change. Now from these two examples, we say that physical change is a temporary change. It is temporary change, and chemical change is a permanent change. It is a permanent change. In physical changes, we find that the states of matter changes. States of matter changes. But in case of chemical change, properties of compounds are changed. compounds are changed. It means that the properties are different from its elements. Right? Now these are the differences between physical change and chemical change. In your textbook at page number 30, there is a chart in which you have to identify the physical and chemical change. Now let us turn towards our main topic, what is meant by chemical reaction. Now let us start the main topic, chemical reaction. Now when we are going to consider chemical reaction, the chemical reaction is nothing but it is a process in which a substance undergo breaking and transform into new substance by formation of new bond. It is called as chemical reaction. Once again I am going to repeat what is the definition of chemical reaction. A process in which some substances undergo bond breaking and the new transform into new substances by forming new bonds. It is called as a chemical reaction. Now let us try to understand one chemical reaction. Suppose that when coal is burnt in air, there is formation of carbon dioxide. Coal is represented by a symbol C. Air, in which we are going to see the factor oxygen, and we find that there is a formation of carbon dioxide gas. Now this is called as chemical reaction in word form. Now let us see what is meant by chemical equation. The representation, now see what I am going to tell you, the representation of chemical reaction into condensed form, using chemical formulae is known as chemical equation. It is known as chemical equation. Now here C plus O2 gives CO2. It is nothing but a chemical reaction, and when we utter carbon is reacted with oxygen, there is formation of carbon dioxide, that is known as chemical reaction. Now let us try to understand what are the importance of chemical reaction. Now this is very important topic which are not given in your textbook, but there may be question in examination. What are the importance of chemical reaction? The first one importance is that reactants are converted into the product. Here I am going to write some points on the board. Importance of chemical reaction. Importance of chemical reaction. Now see the first point which shows what is the importance of chemical reaction. The first one, reactants are converted into the product. Reactants are converted into product. Number of students, they have jumbled. What is mean by reactants? What is mean by product? Once again turns towards the example that we learned about carbon and oxygen. Once again I am going to write that equation. Carbon, when reacted with oxygen, there is formation of carbon dioxide gas. Here carbon and oxygen, they are known as reactant, and from that reactant there is a formation of new compound having different properties that of carbon and oxygen, that is called as product. So in the first importance of chemical reaction, we write that reactants are converted into the products. Right? Now second one is mass is conserved. Mass is conserved. Now when we are going to consider this concept, mass is conserved. What is mean by mass is conserved? Here the atomic mass of carbon is 12. That of oxygen is 6 plus 6, 12. 12 plus 12 is equal to 24 here. One side we see 12 plus 12, that is 24. Therefore, mass is constant. Third one is that we know atoms are conserved. Atoms are conserved. What is mean by atoms are conserved? Here in this equation, we find that the number of carbon atom is 1, that of oxygen is 2. In the product, we find that number of carbon atom is 1 and that of oxygen is 2. That is, atoms are conserved on both sides, that is reactant side as well as product side. Third one, the properties and composition of reactants are different that of the product. Properties are different. This is the fourth important. And fifth important, during the time of that chemical reaction, energy is absorbed or given out. Energy is absorbed or given out. These are the 5 importance of chemical reaction. Right? Are you understand what are the importance of chemical reaction? Now we are going to see the convention or rules used for writing a chemical reaction. Convention, or you may call it as rules of writing chemical reaction. Now see what are that rule. The first rule is that reactants are always written to the left hand side and the products are written to the right hand side of the equation. Second one, when there are 2 or more than 2 reactants, 2 or more than 2 reactants or products, plus sign is inserted. Plus sign is inserted. Now in this equation we find that when carbon is reacted oxygen, there is formation of CO2. Here plus sign is inserted because at the reactant side we find that there are more than 2 reactants. Right? Third one, when there is formation of product, at that time you have to indicate the arrow from reactant to product side. There must be arrow which is given from reactant to the product side. Fourth one, if there are certain condition of temperature, pressure or catalyst, that must be indicated above that arrow. For example, temperature is like this, right? Catalyst, name of the catalyst is like this. It is indicated above the arrow which represented from reactant to the product side. You have to write down, fifth rule is that you have to write down the state of the reactant and product. For example, in this equation, carbon is in solid state, oxygen is in gaseous state, and carbon dioxide is also in gaseous state. The state of the reactant and product must be indicated. Right? Now, sixth step is that if suppose that there is a precipitate, if there is precipitate is indicated by downward arrow, and when there is production of gas, at that time you have to use the upward arrow. These are the major conventions or rules of writing chemical equation reaction. Now in the next lecture we are going to see the different types of chemical reaction. Thank you.